Have you ever been told, oh, they're no trouble at all. They're so quiet. They're one of the good ones. But deep down, something just doesn't sit right because quiet doesn't actually always mean calm. Today, we're talking about the cost of submissive behaviour, why those who appear compliant or withdrawn might be the ones who are actually struggling the most. We'll explore masking, disassociation, and the hidden buildup of stress that often goes unseen until it erupts elsewhere. This is about understanding the behaviour that isn't just what we see, but what's happening beneath the surface.
If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours.
So welcome to the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and we're talking about this submissive behaviour today. In many schools, care homes and families, often quietness is celebrated. Compliance is appreciated. We see them, individuals who behave in compliant and passive and quiet ways, as easier. We assume maybe that they're fine because they don't shout, hit, argue, confront, defy, however we perceive it. But when we're really understanding behaviour, no challenge doesn't always mean that there's no distress. It doesn't always mean that individuals are happy. It doesn't always mean that everything's okay. Some individuals don't externalize their emotions. They internalize them. They freeze, mask, or disassociate, or they just suppress and repress their emotions and feel overwhelmed or scared to show them. They become the good student, the easy client, or the quiet child. Because they're not demanding our attention, their pain is often invisible. They're not demanding that, requiring the needs of the organization or setting particularly. They may be struggling and we not realize. So let's talk a little bit about the term masking. Many people have heard that term now, but masking is the ability, or maybe even the necessity, to hide distress, anxiety, or difference by putting on a socially acceptable front. Is exactly as it sounds, like putting on a mask to hide how I truly feel or how I truly want to express myself. It's incredibly common, particularly among individuals in the neurodivergent community. It might look like smiling when you're overwhelmed or depressed or anxious. It might just be copying others just to fit in. So rather than it being the way you feel you want to act or behave or move, you just follow suit from everybody else. It's staying silent rather than risking a reaction. It's not telling anybody your feelings. It's being the shy one in the corner. The problem is that masking actually takes energy. It's not calm. It's controlled. It's actually really hard work, and that control comes at a cost. I often describe it like this, that I've personally been through some very difficult times in my life where I've struggled and experienced significant depression. But there's been times that even when I was at my lowest, then I still managed to attend a social event and nobody there would have known how much I was struggling. Now, there's a few people who could see through it potentially, and they're the ones I'd tend to avoid when I'm in that state if I needed to present the show. it's hard work, so I can only do it for a while. And I probably will end up having to recover the next day as a result because of the energy required to do. But I could do it. That doesn't mean that I know how to be happy. I'm just choosing not to. In the fact that I can pretend to be happy. It is actually that. It's a pretend. It's not the true me in that moment, which may mean that suppression and repression of genuine emotions was then actually made it worse following. So the physiology behind quiet stress is even though somebody looks still on the outside, their body can be in a state of survival. Adrenaline, cortisol are building, the same stress hormones that are released during fight or flight. But the problem is this time they don't have the outlet. So I often describe it as there's an alarm bell in our brain called the amygdala. When the alarm bell is going off, we call that fight or flight. When the alarm bell is turned off, we call that rest and digest. When somebody is just holding the hammer to just make sure it doesn't make a noise, we call that freeze or submit. The other way of looking at it is it's like a bottle of Coke. On the surface, you can't tell there's anything wrong, but it's been shaken. And every stressor, every demand, every fear, every moment that they have to suppress an authentic reaction just adds more pressure into the bottle. And because they don't express it at school or in care or in front of certain individuals, it builds up until it has to be released somewhere. And maybe it's where they're somewhere safe and the lid comes off, or suddenly they can't hold it anymore and a huge explosion occurs as a result. And that's why there's so many parents out there that sort of really seem confused because the school are saying that their child is lovely and easy, maybe a bit shy, but we never get meltdowns. But then the parents are going, we get meltdowns all the time at home. They're coming home and it's so difficult to support. They're completely dysregulated. It's not that there's two different children. It's not that they're choosing to act out at home. It's not because the parents are weak. Let's say this. Who are you more likely to lose your temper with? A colleague or your partner? Your partner, because you feel it's safer to drop that mask in that moment. It's safer to express your true emotions. It's exactly the same. So whether it be a foster parent, whether it be a parent, whether it be a caregiver that the person trusts, sometimes they're the ones who experience the most difficult behavior because they're the ones a person feels safe enough to be able to release this tension on. It's just two different environments of safety, two different people that make them feel safe in different ways. So when somebody's body is overwhelmed but can't fight or flee, it goes into this freeze or submit state, a survival response still. So it's a form of disassociation. It shuts down. Their body is present, but their emotional energy has disconnected. In care settings, it can sometimes look somebody who's overly compliant or smiles at everything or shows little emotion. Maybe they've just come across as shy or maybe even withdrawn, disengaged, spending all the time in their room. That doesn't mean that they're calm. It doesn't mean they're okay. But this is where it's difficult because it could be an introvert. They could just like time to themselves. If we notice a pattern when we're picking up on, but they don't see, the time to themselves doesn't seem to make them happier. It means they learn that resistance isn't safe. And over time, living in that state can cause long-term emotional and physical exhaustion. So the real danger here is that these individuals slip through the cracks. They're the ones who meet the criteria, don't meet the criteria for interventions. They don't get the diagnosis. They don't get the help because the behavior doesn't challenge. They're the ones who sit quietly in class, complete the tasks, and never cause disruption, but go home, crumble. Now, we must start recognizing the quiet can be communication too. We need to listen when somebody isn't speaking because it might be saying, I don't feel safe enough to show you how I really feel. I don't feel safe enough to express myself. Came across this there was a wonderful LinkedIn post where it was a school. They'll put posters on the back of the toilet doors, particularly in the girls' room. There are so many, particularly teenage girls that I've come across in my career and within my personal and professional life where they'll hide in the toilet. It's a place that can feel safe. It's a place they can lock the door and lock the world out and nobody can get to them, whether it be bullies or whether it be just other people if they just need that time and introversion space to themselves. One girl used to go and eat her lunch in the toilet because she felt too self-conscious and too overwhelmed to be able to eat her lunch in the main cafeteria with everybody else. Horrible is that for her? But there is this perception that some schools take it going, get out of the toilet, stop messing around, and that kids are just skiving by using the toilets. But this school put posts on the door saying, hey, I know sometimes this is a place that you go to where you can feel safe. But we want you to know that if you talk to us, we'll make sure you have a nicer place to feel safe. If you open up to us and express that you're struggling, we'll do our best to support you so that you don't have to hide in the toilet when you're feeling overwhelmed. So what can we do to recognize the signs? How can we identify when quiet isn't just quiet? Here are a few indicators. Somebody who struggles to say no, even when they feel uncomfortable. They just go along. They just seem to just do whatever they're asked. Whereas kind of you're thinking, they didn't seem that bothered with that. Don't seem to be putting any boundaries in place. Please recognize that's not a good thing. It may feel like it's making your life easier because, hey, it didn't argue. They just did what I asked. But I've always tried to make it that no is a good word. No is, because especially as a parent, you want to raise your child to know that no is important. Sometimes, yes, you have to enforce your yes. Sometimes you have to understand their no to negotiate and find a compromise or collaborate. But sometimes their no is vital because when you aren't there anymore and somebody's trying to coerce them to do something they want to do, what do you want their answer to be? No. You can't go, well, you don't get to say no to me, but you should say no to everybody else. Sometimes you need to recognize that no is really advantageous and you want to make it sure it feels like a safe word. If you've got a child who never says no, you should be worrying. If you're finding that an individual's sudden exhaustion or disengagement after social or structured time, we have this at the moment where we're supporting there's a girl in my world who the difference from being back at school or being back at college from where she was during the summer was just so different that now we're just finding that shutdown is happening most evenings after she's had to work so hard to manage her anxiety and engage socially. We have to be really mindful of it. They may find difficulty for themselves to express their feelings and their needs. They might emotionally release in private, often at home or in safe environments, and maybe they act out in a way that seems kind of a bit over dramatic, but it's a way of expressing in a way that feels safe for them. So recognize these patterns is a first step that we can take towards better supporting somebody. And once we recognize it, the goal is then to isn't to like force them to express openly. It's not to kind of expose them in front of everybody, to create the conditions they feel safe to do so. Again, the opposite to anxiety is not calm, it's trust. So people need to feel psychologically safe to be able to express their emotion. So building trusting relationships where mistakes and emotions are absolutely okay. Letting them trust their own feelings by rather than denying or questioning or making them validate why they feel certain ways, we use empathy, curiosity, and playfulness. Reducing performance pressure, anxiety, social or emotional, and even things like saying well done when somebody does something well actually could increase anxiety because suddenly it's a case of, hey, I've got to do this again. Now look how happy they were with me for doing that. What if I let them down now? It's a complete counterintuitive way of thinking. So often, so common. Try and use low arousal, non-judgmental language. It's as well as growth mindset language. Don't focus on the major successes or the major failures. A little bit more nonchalant, going, hey, how do you feel about this? It's all about them and their feelings rather than the outcomes. Make sure we allow time and space for decompression after high demanding environments. Find things that you know work to help them to de-stress. What works for them to feel better? They may have some good habits themselves, but they may just go to their room and not really have any habits whatsoever. So therefore, try and work with them to create some. Supporting families who see the aftershocks at home as well, not dismissing them. If you're a teacher out there, an educator, and you're having family who are saying, we're really struggling with our kid, what's going on at school? Then what can school do to better help? Because there is a disconnect there that they're not feeling safe enough at school to act themselves. So suddenly they're feeling overwhelmed when they're at home. Rather than just judging the parents and thinking they're bad, what are you doing to help? We just came across a really good example of this, actually, whether a particular school actually noticed a child was shut down, was isolating themselves. Rather than just kind of ignoring it, they've actually connected, had a conversation, said, hey, would you like some support? Would you like to talk to somebody? And slowly, they seem to be getting there, that demonstrating they actually care. This girl's instinct is to shut down. I'm fine. But the problem is, every time says, well, fine, suit yourself then, she just reinforces, see, nobody really cares. Nobody's actually bothered. Parents and professionals often live with two different realities with some of the individuals that they're supporting and working with. You might find that one set of staff might see a compliant individual, and parents or other staff might see explosive emotions. But both are true. And both are signs of dysregulation. Both are signs this person's not okay. This is where communication between different environments becomes absolutely vital. Instead of saying, well, we don't see that here, we should be asking, what can we learn from what we see there? We had this at a school where one teacher was resistant to looking at behavior because, well, they don't act out in my class, but they were going straight into another class and acting out. Well, maybe the other class, they feel safer, and in your class, they don't. And okay, so I understand why maybe some people would feel resistance. I don't want blaming and shaming 100%. And maybe they're right. But if we had a child who, straight after every lesson, the next lesson they went to, they had an epileptic seizure, would we only look at the lesson they were in when they had an epileptic seizure? Or would we also look at what else was going on around them? What else had led up to that? What else is happening, to explore every possible option to try and help this child in the future? Well, dysregulation is no different. So we need to be better detectives than judges, as many of you heard me say many, many times before. So when we ignore submissive behavior, we risk long-term consequences: chronic anxiety, depression, burnout, even trauma. Over time, living in survival mode rewires the nervous system. It teaches people that feelings are unsafe, that authority or authenticity leads to rejection, and that invisibility is the safest way to exist, that I wouldn't want for anybody. And that's not well-being. That's self-erasure, self-disappearance. It's invisibility as your special power, your special skill. So there is a cost to submissive behavior. It's a silent suffering that we don't notice until potentially it's too late. So our job as caregivers, teachers, parents isn't just to calm the loudest voices, it's to listen for the quiet ones as well. Behind those smiles, the compliance and the calm exterior, there may be somebody desperately holding that bottle of Coke together, waiting for somebody to notice before it bursts. Quiet isn't always safe. But when we notice it, name it, and nurture it, that's when safety really begins. Please, if you know anybody that may be a child, an adult, an individual in a care home, doesn't matter what age, that sometimes is the quiet one, maybe you can encourage somebody to listen to this podcast and encourage them to then listen more. Thank you.